your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Lou Nan, I know exactly who he's talking about, Lou Nan. No, he's not one of my 50. I'm just trying to check my list here where I ranked him in terms of value. Wait a minute, where is he? According to my system, I have him ranked 88th all time because he had a couple of brief spurts there, like the one time the North Stars made to the Stanley Cup Finals in '81. But in the overall, he had some lean years, and at the end, he ranks 88th with a managerial value of -3. I mean, my rating system is like a plus-minus system, Ben. What I did was I isolated 8 universal standards of success. Namely, like if your team makes the playoffs, you get a point. Winning season, you get 2 points. If your winning percentage is above 600, you get 3 points. You finish in first place in your division, 4. Reach the Stanley Cup Finals, you get 5 points. Win the Stanley Cup, you get 6. If your team's winning percentage in the regular season is above 700, you get 7 points. If it's above 800, you get 8 points. Conversely, on the losing side, I quantify failure. If you don't make the playoffs, if you have a losing season, you get a point. If you don't make the playoffs, you get 2 points. If your winning percentage is below 300, you lose 3. These are all negative points. It's subtractions. Finish in last place, you lose 4. If your winning percentage is at the 200 level, it's 5. And if it's below 100, it's at 6. And basically what you do is you run every GM through that system, and what you came out, the final product is my book. Those were the top 50 were in terms of career value. In other words, the higher your value is, the more the more higher you rank and all that.
Right, and it's amazing the system that you put together. I was definitely going to ask you about that, but as you're going through the book and as when you explained it in the intro, it was, to me, it's amazing that what you put together, and I think you could use this formula really almost for any sport. And I think that's amazing. That's almost genius. I mean, you need to patent that or package it and sell it to somebody that wants to write one for Major League Baseball, basketball, football. So I salute you and applaud you for that. Another question here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, Ben.
Oh, no problem. So Jelani, he hosts a show called The Wait a Minute Show, and his question is, do GMs draft or sign players just because they can fight? Now, I don't know if he's a jokester, so I think that's a serious question, though.
The issue of fighting, that I'm not sure. The key is, though, you do need muscle, though.
Right.
You need, sometimes, some teams, they've got good scoring defensemen, but they don't have the requisite muscle to, kill penalties, to help protect their scorers and all of that. Even Wayne Gretzky had to have a bodyguard. You've got to have some strength. It's like in the 1960s, the Canadians had a 4-year drought from 61 to 64 where they didn't win the Stanley Cup. However, they signed the late John Ferguson. And John Ferguson was one of the strongest and toughest NHL players of the 1960s and the early 1970s, and when he came onto the team, he was able to provide some valuable muscle to the team. But he wasn't a goon. He could play, he could shoot, he could score, but he was a tremendous power forward, and he helped protect the smaller Canadians players. He brought the requisite muscle, and then Montreal won Stanley Cups in 65, 66, 68, and 69, and 71, thanks to John Ferguson.
Right. And, Jelani says, no, I'm serious, drafting a guy to protect your superstar. And that's just like what you touched on. And each team needs some muscle. Each team needs that guy.
Yeah.
So that's, definitely a good question there. So everybody, once again, talking to Matthew DiBiase. He wrote the book, The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's Greatest General Managers. He also has a book out called Bench Bosses, the NHL's Coaching Elite. So I'm going to put the link in the chat room for both of those books. Definitely, I suggest you guys go check it out. And there is a lot of intrigue in this in the chat room. So it's very a lot of people are very interested in it. Another question we have from Vince Wright. He says, ask him about Stan Bowman for my Blackhawks. He's a Blackhawks fan. He's originally from Chicago. So I was looking on the list to see if you had him ranked, but you may have him on your own list. But what do you your thoughts on him?
Yeah, right when the book came out, before this present season started, I have him ranked 15th all time with a career value of plus 105 because he helped manage 3 Stanley Cup winners in the 2000s. In my book, I have him ranked as the greatest general manager of this present decade, the 2010s. Now, right now, Chicago failed to make the playoffs, so actually he's stagnated a bit, and so he won't improve on his record this year. But I know he will be retained by Chicago because I saw a blip on the internet that said that both Bowman and head coach Joel Quenneville will be retained by the Blackhawks for next season. But Bowman, I mean, it did a great work and helped maintaining the Blackhawks dynasty in the 2010s. He didn't so much build it. I mean, Dale Talon got basically the players, but however, when he moved to Florida, Bowman took over, and basically he retained the central core of the Blackhawks. Kane, Jonathan Toews, Duncan Keith, and Corey Crawford, he maintained the core, and he got 3 Stanley Cups out of it. But right now, the last 2 seasons he's gotten burned, and right now the Hawks are stagnating, and hopefully he can find a way to turn it around and get back their equilibrium. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for Stan Bowman, and he's Scotty Bowman's son. I mean, he was named Stanley after I think he was born in 1973, the year Scotty Bowman won the Stanley Cup while coaching the Canadiens in '73 against the Blackhawks, ironically. Seriously, he was named after the Stanley Cup, Stan Bowman. Yeah,
man. And like I just mentioned, your book is very detailed. It is very broken down. You can go through and read this book and definitely see where your team's GM, or one of your team's GMs, I should say, is ranked. But I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite GM in this book, or maybe just of all time in the NHL?
Well, I think it's number one, the late Sam Pollock. I mean, right now, of all the NHL trophies, they're always named after people, but the only one it's not named after right now is the General Manager of the Year award. And why they haven't picked a person to name it after is beyond me. But if you have to name it for someone, I say name it after Sam Pollock, because in only 14 seasons as a general manager, he became the greatest of all time because he got unparalleled success with his Montreal Canadiens teams. I mean, he faced a daunting task because he took over the Canadiens from the late Frank Selke Sr., who was a great general manager in his own right, was ranked 3rd according to my calculations. I mean, taking over from a great GM is a daunting task in its own right, because all you can do is go downward, and yet not only did they not go downward, they performed even better under Pollock than they did under Selke. I mean, he won all those cups from 64-65 till his last season in 77-78. I mean, it's incredible. In only 14 seasons, yet he outdid the late Jack Adams, who was number one before him, who took him 30-some years to create what he did. He did it in less than half the time. So that's a stupendous record of accomplishment, and it'll never be equaled by any present NHL general manager, as far as I know, because the way the league is today, the expansion and all that, you just can't replicate what Sam Pollock did. You just can't do it. It's not possible.
Right. That's true. And I think in NHL and a lot of sports, it is you don't see someone on a team for their whole career. I think, in NBA, for example, Dirk's probably the last one. That's probably the last person we're going to see that's been on a team his whole career. There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of moving and shaking, so there's more flexibility right now in sports, period, than there probably has been ever, with just how everything is moved. And Vince Wright, he's got 2 questions here. First one, he wanted to know, present day, what GM do you like that's in the league right now?
You have to take your hat off to Ken Holland, who's the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. Although the Red Wings have not made the playoffs this season and the season before that, simply because the team is aging and they're in major rebuilding mode. Ken Holland, again, just like Sam Pollock took over a great team that was built by Jim Devellano, and he made it did even better. I mean, according to my calculations, Ken Holland is the greatest active NHL general manager in the game today, even though he's kind of lost points off his value because the Red Wings, had a losing season. But, a very quiet. I couldn't get an interview with Ken Holland. I tried to, but Ken Holland is not a person to seek publicity. He's not someone who toots his own horn. He just lets his magnificent work speak for itself. And yet, the man who taught him how to be a general manager, Jim Devellano, gave me beautiful chapter and verse on what it is that makes Ken Holland the great GM that he is. And I like to give a shout out to Jimmy D, who's in retirement in Florida, for all his help with this book, because he really came through, because he helped set up my interviews with Harry Sinden, Dean Lombardi, and a couple other general managers, and he was great with me. But I think Ken Holland is the best general manager. He's the best GM in the game today. Lou Lamoriello with Toronto is a close second. I mean, he's trying to end the longest Stanley Cup drought right now with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I hope he pulls it off. That would be the most brilliant coup of all. He took the New Jersey Devils, who were the laughingstock of the NHL 30 years ago, and he made them winners, contenders, and three-time Stanley Cup champions. And it's all due to his work, even though he was running the Devils on a shoestring budget. Doug Wilson has done great work with the San Jose Sharks. Ray Shero is presently the GM of the New Jersey Devils. Great guy. He was one of my first interviews. He's doing a great job of rebuilding the New Jersey Devils. They're in the playoffs right now, although I don't know if they're going to survive the first round. I don't know about that. These are great men who have done magnificent work. David Poyle, general manager of the Nashville Predators. He's been there for centuries. I think he's like the longest-serving active general manager in the game today, and his team is just getting better and better. They had their first Stanley Cup Finals appearance last season. They won their first President's Trophy this season, and who knows? I wouldn't put it past them that they make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they hopefully even win, because he's never won one, and I hope he finally breaks through and gets one.
Yeah. And then the other question Vince has, once again, we're talking with Matt DiBiase. He's wrote the book, The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's greatest managers. He wants to get the book, but he also wants to get an autographed copy. So how does he do that?
Well, you won't be able to find it in a store like a Barnes & Noble. You have to purchase it online. Now, he wants an autographed copy.
He's in Minnesota. I think you're in Philly, so I know they're not really close to each other.
Can you ask him? Can he ask him to email you, Ben? And if you can relay his email address to me, then we can work something out. Okay?
Yeah. I'll get that info over to you.
I'll mail him an autographed copy. Okay? Let's work something out. Have him email you. Is that possible, Ben?
Yeah, actually, I have his email, so I'll shoot it to you, and then you can definitely hit him up. Are you where are you from originally? Because Vince is thinking you're from Minnesota. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, I was born and raised in southern New Jersey. I lived in southern New Jersey all my life until 2012, and now I live in northeastern Philadelphia. I had to move due to my work commitments.
Okay.
I'm a professional historian by trade. I work for the National Archives, have worked for the National Archives since 1991, but I'm a professional historian by trade.
All right, and what's your team? I was thinking maybe it was the Flyers, but now you're saying New Jersey. I'm wondering.
Nope, it's the Flyers, because this is southern New Jersey, the greater Philadelphia area. It's always been the Flyers, always. Go Flyers. I mean, they won last night. Thank God. Praise the Lord.
Yeah, they're right there. Now they're with the Penguins, who are trying to three-peat. It's going to be tough for the Flyers, but I think anything can happen. This is the playoffs. Everybody plays different. Some people step their game up. Some people get kind of shook or afraid. But it's playoff time. It's different atmosphere.
Yeah, well, Ron Hextall, their general manager, was a deputy under Dean Lombardi when Dean Lombardi managed the Los Angeles Kings to 2 Stanley Cup titles in 2012 and 2014. He learned his skills under Dean Lombardi, and then he